A house that learned to breathe again. Have you ever felt lonely, even when you're not alone? That's exactly how Evelyn felt every single day in her big, quiet house. The old grandfather clock made soft ticking sounds in the empty hallway. Evelyn stood near the kitchen window, holding a cup of tea that had grown cold. Outside, tiny drops of rain made wavy lines down the glass. The sky looked grey and sad. Once again, she was eating dinner by herself. Once again, her husband David was gone for work. He travelled a lot for his job. He always promised he'd come home soon, but soon kept getting longer and longer. When she heard footsteps at the front door, Evelyn spun around quickly. She hoped it was David coming home early. But instead, it was Liam, David's son from when he was married before. Liam walked in carrying one small bag and looking very tired. He had been trying to live on his own for many months, but things hadn't worked out. You could see the sadness in the way he walked, like he was carrying something heavy on his shoulders. Evelyn gave him a small smile, trying to hide how surprised she was. "It's good to see you, Liam," she said in a gentle voice. He looked at her nervously. "Dad said I could come back home for a little while. Just until I figure out what to do next." "Of course you can stay," she answered. "This is your home. You don't need anyone's permission." That night, while Liam put his things away in his old bedroom down the hall, Evelyn stood near the doorway watching him. He looked so different now. He seemed older and much quieter than before. It was the kind of quiet that happens when something inside you breaks. She remembered when he was younger and always acted polite, but kept his distance from her. Even now, there was still an invisible wall between them. The days went by in the same peaceful, quiet way. They ate dinner together without saying much. They had short conversations that didn't go very deep. But as the house stayed quiet, Evelyn started noticing little things about Liam. He stayed awake late at night, sitting at the dining table, lost in his own thoughts. She could hear his footsteps walking through the hallway when everyone else in the world was sleeping. One night, Evelyn couldn't fall asleep, so she went downstairs to get some water. Light was coming from the living room and spilling across the floor. Liam was sitting on the couch with a book open in his hands, but his eyes weren't really reading the words. "You're still awake?" she asked softly. He looked up and gave her a tired smile. "I can't really sleep these days. My brain won't stop thinking about everything." Evelyn understood that feeling. She sat down in the chair across from him. "I know exactly what you mean." For a while, neither of them said anything. The only sound was the clock ticking away the seconds. Then Liam spoke, almost like he was talking to himself. "It's weird, isn't it? Sometimes you can be around lots of people but still feel completely alone." His words hung in the air between them. Evelyn wanted to tell him that she understood perfectly, but saying that would reveal too much about her own loneliness. Instead, she simply said, "Things get easier as time goes by." He smiled, but it was a sad smile, like he didn't really believe her. That night marked the beginning of something new between them. It wasn't romance, and it wasn't exactly friendship either. It was just two lonely people finding comfort in each other's quiet company. Evelyn didn't understand it at first, but those late-night conversations were slowly filling the empty space that David had left behind each evening. She found herself hoping Liam would come downstairs. They talked about songs they liked, memories from long ago, and disappointments they had faced in life. Sometimes Liam told her stories about his real mother, like how she used to make chocolate chip cookies whenever it rained outside. Evelyn listened carefully, feeling something strange stirring inside her heart. She felt guilty about the warm feelings growing inside her. She tried hard to ignore them, telling herself she was just being kind and helpful. But the truth was harder to hide. Clara, Evelyn's best friend, noticed something had changed when they met for lunch one afternoon. You seem distracted, Eve, Clara said while stirring sugar into her coffee. Is everything okay at home? Evelyn hesitated before answering. I'm just tired, I guess. David has been traveling so much lately. Clara raised one eyebrow and gave her a knowing look. And what about Liam? Evelyn's head snapped up. What do you mean? Nothing, Clara said quickly. But her voice carried a warning. Just be careful, that's all. When you're lonely, it's easy to lean on someone who shouldn't be there. Evelyn laughed a little, but the laugh didn't sound happy. That night when she got home, Clara's warning kept playing in her mind. Liam was sitting near the fireplace, trying to fix an old picture frame that had cracked. He looked up and smiled, not knowing about all the confused thoughts spinning in Evelyn's head. This picture is broken, he said, holding it up. It's the one with you and Dad, right? Yes, she said quietly. Everything in this house is old. He stared at her for a moment, like he was trying to read her mind. It's still beautiful, though, he said simply. A strange feeling filled her chest, a mix of warmth, guilt, and something she couldn't name. She turned away quickly before he could see the confusion in her eyes. That night, Evelyn lay in her bed staring up at the ceiling. The sound of rain tapping against the windows was soft and steady. She thought about David, and how his voice always sounded distracted when he called. She thought about Liam and the deep sadness in his eyes that made him seem much older than he really was. When the clock struck 12 midnight, she got up and walked quietly through the dark hallway. The wooden floor made creaking sounds under her feet. She didn't really know why she was walking toward Liam's room. She told herself she just wanted to check if he was okay, because the storm outside was getting stronger. The lights had flickered once, like they might go out. She stopped outside his bedroom door. A thin line of light showed underneath it. Her heart was beating fast, not because she was scared, but because she felt confused about what she was doing. Finally, she knocked very gently on the door dot. There was a pause. Then she heard his voice, surprised. Evelyn? Is everything all right? I couldn't sleep, she said through the door. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. He opened the door a little bit, rubbing his tired eyes. Yeah, I'm fine. I couldn't sleep either. They both stood there in the doorway for a moment. The silence stretched out between them. Neither of them could find the right words to explain what they were feeling. They were just two people drifting through a storm, looking for something solid to hold on to. Evelyn gave him a small smile. Good night, Liam. He nodded. Good night. She turned to walk back to her room, but stopped one more time, her hand still touching the doorframe. For just a second, she wanted to say something, anything to make the strange heavy feeling in her chest go away. But the words wouldn't come out. She just nodded again and walked away. That night, neither of them could fall asleep. As the rain kept falling against the windows, the silence in the house grew heavier and deeper, like a secret that neither of them was ready to talk about. The next morning, Evelyn woke up with a heavy feeling she couldn't shake off. Bright sunlight came through the curtains, lighting up her neat and organized bedroom. David was already gone, probably rushing to his office like he always did. All that was left was the faint smell of his cologne on the bedsheets. The house looked exactly the same as always, but inside Evelyn, everything had changed. She lay still for a long time, staring up at the ceiling, thinking about all the late-night moments with Liam. She felt confused and guilty at the same time. Later that day at work, she couldn't concentrate. Papers blurred in front of her eyes. People talked to her, but their words drifted past without meaning. She was haunted by two truths fighting inside her head. First, she knew she had let her heart wander away from her marriage. Second, she didn't feel as sorry about it as she thought she should. This battle in her mind ate away at her, Every time she looked in the mirror, she didn't just see a wife anymore. She saw a woman tangled up in a secret she could never tell anyone. A week went by. She tried to stay busy and avoid thinking about everything. But every quiet moment brought back memories of those late-night talks and the connection she had felt. One evening, David came home earlier than expected. The front door opened quietly one morning, and Evelyn looked up from the kitchen table to see him standing there with his suitcase, looking tired but kind. For a second, she didn't know what to say. So many weeks had passed with only quick phone calls and missed moments. The house suddenly felt too small for all the things they hadn't said to each other. He smiled a little. "You look surprised. I thought you were coming home tonight," she said softly. "I caught an earlier plane. I figured you wouldn't mind." She shook her head. "Of course not." He put his bag down and looked around the quiet house. "It feels really quiet in here." "Liam left yesterday," she explained carefully. "He found a job in the city." David nodded. "That's good news. I hope it helps him get a fresh start." Silence filled the space between them. Neither knew how to fill it. Evelyn made fresh coffee while David unpacked his things in the bedroom. The sound of cups clinking and spoons stirring seemed louder than it should have been. She watched the steam rising from his coffee cup as she set it down in front of him. He took a sip and looked at her carefully. "You've gotten thinner," he said gently. "Maybe just from stress," she replied. David sighed and rubbed his forehead. "I know I've been gone way too much. Every time I leave, I tell myself it's for our future, for us. But maybe I've just been running away from the problems here at home." Evelyn looked down at her hands. "And what problems are here?" He paused before answering. "Distance. The kind that grows so slowly you don't notice it until it's too late to fix easily." Her throat felt tight. She wanted to tell him everything about the loneliness that had been eating her alive, about the guilt she carried, about the late-night talks that had filled the empty spaces in her heart. But the words got stuck somewhere between her heart and her mouth. She didn't want to break something that might still have a chance of being repaired. Later that afternoon, Clara stopped by for a quick visit. Her voice sounded warm and friendly like always, but her eyes searched Evelyn's face carefully. "He's home now," Clara said quietly. Evelyn nodded. "Yes, he is." "Then you need to talk to him," Clara urged, "before the silence becomes a habit that's too hard to break." That evening, Evelyn stood by the window watching the sky turn beautiful shades of orange and soft blue as the sun went down. David came and stood beside her. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Evelyn said, "I don't know when I started feeling like a stranger in my own home." He turned to face her. "Maybe it was when I started treating my job like a hiding place." She smiled a little. "We both ran away, didn't we?" He nodded slowly. "Maybe for different reasons, but yes, we did." The truth hung in the air between them, fragile but real. Evelyn took a deep breath. "David, I need to tell you something important." He waited, his expression steady but tired. "I've been so lonely," she continued, "and I let that loneliness lead me to a place I shouldn't have gone. Nothing physical happened, but I let my heart wander away. I found comfort in the wrong place, with the wrong person." David's face didn't change right away. He looked at her for a long moment, then looked away toward the darkening sky. The sound of the clock ticking filled the silence between them. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and sad. "It was Liam, wasn't it?" She nodded once, tears filling her eyes. "It wasn't what you might think, but it was still wrong. I'm so sorry." David let out a long, slow breath. The air felt heavy with disappointment more than anger. "You didn't betray me with your actions, Evelyn. You betrayed me by not talking to me, by keeping silent about what you were feeling." She closed her eyes as tears rolled down her cheeks. "I know. You're right." They stood there together for a while, two people who had once loved each other deeply, who had drifted apart, and now had to face the painful distance between them. Later that evening, David sat on the couch staring at an old photograph. It showed the three of them together: David, Evelyn, and Liam. Everyone in the picture was smiling. Those smiles looked real and happy. But Evelyn knew now how easily photographs could tell lies. "I don't hate you," David said quietly, still looking at the picture. "But it hurts. It really hurts to know that I wasn't here when you needed me most." Evelyn sat down beside him on the couch. "I should have told you sooner. I just didn't want to push us even further apart." He nodded slowly, his eyes still on the photograph. "We can't change what already happened. But maybe we can stop running away from our problems." They didn't talk for the rest of the night. Words felt too small and weak to carry the weight of forgiveness. But when David reached out and gently placed his hand over hers, Evelyn felt something she hadn't felt in many months' hope. Days turned into weeks. Life started finding its rhythm again. Liam called once to check in, and his voice sounded lighter and happier than before. "I got the job," he said excitedly. "Things are finally getting better for me." "I'm so glad to hear that," Evelyn told him. There was genuine warmth in her voice and peace too. They didn't talk about the past during that phone call. They didn't need to. Some things are better left to quiet understanding, where words aren't necessary. After the call ended, David asked softly, "Was that Liam on the phone?" "Yes," she replied. "He's doing really well now." David smiled a little. "Good. He deserves a chance to start over fresh." Evelyn nodded in agreement. "We all do." The next morning, Evelyn found a handwritten letter on her bedside table. David's handwriting was neat but a little shaky, as if he had written it while thinking deeply about every word. The letter said, "Dear Evelyn, we've both made mistakes. Some were bigger and louder than others. But maybe real love isn't about never making mistakes. It's about learning which ones we can forgive and which ones we can grow from. I don't know if I can ever forget what happened, but I do know one thing for certain. I don't want to lose you because of it. Let's try to start over. Slowly this time. With love, David." Tears filled Evelyn's eyes as she carefully folded the letter. It wasn't a grand romantic gesture like in the movies, but it was honest and real. And that was more than enough. That evening, they sat together on the front porch, watching the sky slowly fade from blue to purple to black as twilight settled in. The silence between them wasn't cold or uncomfortable anymore. It was the kind of silence that comes after a big rainstorm, gentle, healing and patient. Evelyn leaned her head against David's shoulder. "Do you think things between us can ever go back to the way they were before?" she whispered. He thought about her question for a moment before answering. "No," he said softly and honestly. "But maybe they can become something even better than before." She smiled faintly, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. "Maybe that's good enough." The crickets began their evening song, filling the air with gentle chirping sounds. A cool breeze brushed against their faces. Inside the house, everything felt different now. The rooms didn't feel empty anymore. Instead, the house felt alive again, as if it too had finally exhaled after holding its breath for far too long. As the first stars appeared above the quiet neighborhood, twinkling like tiny diamonds in the dark sky, Evelyn finally understood what she had been searching for all along. She hadn't been looking for comfort or escape. She had been searching for peace, real, honest peace. Sometimes love doesn't come from holding on tighter and refusing to let go. Real love comes from admitting where you went wrong, from saying sorry, and then choosing to stay and work things out together anyway. The next morning, beautiful golden sunlight poured through the windows of the house. All the dark shadows were gone, replaced by the simple beauty of forgiveness and new beginnings. Evelyn poured 2 cups of fresh, hot coffee. She placed 1 cup in front of David and smiled at him, a real, genuine smile. For the first time in many, many months, the house felt like a true home again. The clock still ticked in the hallway, but now its sound seemed peaceful instead of lonely. The rooms that had once echoed with silence now hummed with quiet hope. And 2 people who had almost lost each other had found their way back, not to where they started, but to somewhere new and better. That's how their story didn't end, but began again, with honesty, forgiveness, and the courage to choose love even when it's hard.